When we talk about diabetes and all the things that go along with it, hypertension and lipid disorders, and not to mention the epidemic of obesity, the news that we're getting is pretty worrisome and frightening. I know that you're aware of the figures that 100 million Americans already have either pre-diabetes or diabetes itself, and it's not just America. We're exporting this disease worldwide. And I have to say that on a personal note, my own life sort of tracked along with this pessimistic view. I grew up in the Midwest. My father grew up on a cattle ranch, as did all my ancestors as far back as I can count. But my dad hated the cattle business. He left it and he went to medical school, and he spent his life treating diabetes in Fargo, North Dakota. And every night he'd get home about 6 o'clock, 6:30, and I never once heard him say, "I had a patient get better. I had a patient whose diabetes is no longer detectable. I had a patient who no longer needs insulin or is able to cut back on their dose, or I have a patient who's really losing weight." The whole idea was we were managing the slow deterioration of disease and trying to prepare the patient for one after another piece of bad news. Well, when I was an intern here at the George Washington University Hospital, I have to say I found diabetes the most boring disease to deal with, because all we were doing was monitoring things and watching things get worse. But all of that changed for me. Back a number of years ago, we were funded by NIH to do some tests, not of a new medication, but of diets. And we've done a number of these studies, as you'll hear about. But in this particular one, we were doing a head-to-head trial of what I'm going to call the ADA diet, meaning carbohydrate. We were paying attention to carbohydrate and paying attention to energy intake. And you're comparing that with a plant-based diet. And in the course of that trial, I had a man who came in, volunteered for the study. He told me how his own father was dead by age 30. He himself was 31 when he got this disease, type 2 diabetes, and after about a year's time, he had lost 60 pounds. His hemoglobin A1C, which had been 9.5, had dropped to 5.3. He was on no medications at all, and I thought, if you walked into my clinic today, I wouldn't have known that you had ever had this disease. And I'd never seen that before. And there was another man who had come in. He had diabetes for 19 years. He was on insulin several times a day. And his biggest complaint was neuropathy. You've seen neuropathy. It isn't just numbness and pain in your feet, but it also has a psychological component. You start to feel, I am definitely not young anymore. Something is getting worse and worse and worse. And you just see the possibilities of your life shrinking more and more. Well, after about 4 or 5 months on his new diet, coming in every week for support, he said, "You know, my neuropathy is gone." And I said, "Well, that's great. You've done really well. You're on a lot less insulin. And I'm glad to hear your neuropathy is a lot better." He said, "No, that isn't what I said. I don't have any pain at all anymore." And I had never heard of such a thing. I thought, well, how can that be? So we continued to study these things, and the research is by no means finished. But the point is that instead of all these gloomy, doomy statistics, we now have tremendous reason for hope. That this is not necessarily a one-way street. Diabetes is a two-way street, where we can change the direction once we're in the middle of it, and most importantly, if we intervene soon enough, if we can wave a magic wand and have every child in America eat a healthier diet at school and at home, and pass by the fast food chains on the way home, this is a disease that we know we have power of prevention that we didn't understand before.